3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALk.
Alright, well, apparently Friday the 13th isn't a problem, but Saturday the 14th is. We are unable to connect to our next guest, Mark Meckler, co-founder of the Tea Party Patriots. He is the head of Citizens for Self-Government, and we let him know that he can call us, and Skip's leaving him a message right now. So, welcome back to GrokTALK. I'm Steve McDonald here with Skip Murphy, Mike Rogers. Thanks again to Guy Comtois, Susan Olson, Jane Cormier, and of course Dr. Jeffrey Singer for being on the program today. We are kind of hanging on late this week. It's 11 o'clock. We're usually done before now, but we have a potential opportunity to speak to Senator Ted Cruz at 11:30, and we really want to take advantage of that. So, we've tried to book guests to fill the spot, and if we haven't successfully connected to those guests, of course, it is us. We can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Of course, Mike is chewing his bad apple down there, so he's not talking. He doesn't even have his headset on. So I'm sort of just kind of hanging on here by myself while I wait to see if Skip can connect with our guest. Oh, there he is. Hi, Mike.
Okay, yep, I'm back. Yeah, I was munching on my bad apple. Yes, exactly. That's because I just noted an article where Obama says that the VA scandal was due to some bad apples.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody photoshopped a picture of Obama's face onto an apple, not very expertly.
No. Well, it didn't look too bad.
It wasn't bad, but it was just a
It wasn't as good as the fungus.
No.
That fungus was excellent, though. All right. Well, I'm looking at the guest, Mark
should it be
today.
Should it be diced or sautéed?
I don't like mushrooms, so that's perfect for Mr. Fungus Cullen. I don't dislike Fergus. He's probably a fine human being when you take him away from politics. I don't know. I mean,
he's a very nice guy, but he can't resist thinking he's still in charge of the NHGOP, which he so nearly wrecked.
So nearly. Yes, I would say that being unable to keep the governor's office, having lost the entire executive council, the Senate, and the House, would definitely classify as having not been a successful chairman.
And yet and bankrupting the party at the same time.
Yeah.
And leaving the fiscal disaster and the sloppy mess that he left at the office.
And the legal issues as well with the FEC. But again, he discounts the whole 2010 election, by which at that time the Tea Party movement had come roaring into the political scene and basically swept pretty much everything. And yet, according to Fergus, the Tea Party movement is the fringe. So, anyways, you want to hear something else?
I'd love to.
Okay, here's a WTF moment of the day, the week. Backyard burger and weenie roast targeted by the EPA. The Environmental Protection Agency has its eyes on pollution from backyard barbecues. You know, I actually think that pollution from backyard barbecues is the smell wafting over the fence saying, I need to go buy a steak and turn on my grill as well.
I agree.
The agency,
likewise, the smell of wood smoke from your wood stoves, which the EPA would like to regulate out of existence.
We've got people right in New Hampshire who want to do that.
Yeah. And you know, so the only thing better than wood smoke is gun smoke, and if the government keeps going the way it's going, it'll be getting plenty of that.
Yeah.
Oh, that was excellent segue.
Yeah, the agency announced it's funding a University of California project to limit emissions resulting from grease drippings with a special tray to catch them and a catalytic filtration system. The technology will help. The school said the technology they will study with the EPA grant is intended to reduce air pollution and cut health hazards to barbecue pit masters from propane-fueled cookers. And charged with keeping America's air, water, and soil clean, the EPA has been increasingly looking at homeowners, including their use of pollution-emitting tools like lawnmowers.
Yeah.
You know,
Trimmers, all your 2-cycle engines.
Yeah, the whole bit. I mean, this. At what point, to use your question, Steve, is enough enough? And it isn't going to be until we can just sit around and do absolutely nothing but twiddle our thumbs that they will consider their jobs complete.
Don't forget.
They want us to be starving in the dark in our caves, except we won't be able to light a fire.
You're going to have to hire a landscaper who's filled out all the appropriate forms and knows how to complete the electronic landscaping records.
But there's one form he will never be required to fill out, and that's whether he's using illegal Mexicans.
Right. Well, that's
they won't be illegal anymore.
Because that would be racist.
Yeah, there'll be no such thing as an illegal Mexican immigrant.
The southern border erased.
They'll just be Mexicans.
Yeah. Well, there's a post that I've a bookmark that I've done on. You know that the federal government came out with new guidelines for the dietary pyramid, which also includes you should change your diet because it'll help save the planet.
Yes.
Climate change and all that other stuff. Well, I came across another one that says, well, based on this information and these new things, we're going to have people called interventionists. One of my favorite questions is, what is the proper role of government? And these nitwits, these micro-totalitarians have decided that they're going to use government money to go and fan across the public arena, and they're going to intervene in our lifestyles and make us eat healthier.
Secret police.
No, they're not.
Not so secret.
No, they're not so secret, and they're actually quite happy to say we have to do our part to make the public healthier. We must make them see what they're doing wrong and change their behaviors.
So they're going to take the Dorito from my cold dead hand. Is that
Let's
work?
put it this way. No, wait.
Yeah.
Keep your eyes open. They will applaud you for eating your apple. They will castigate us that normally after the show we go eat chili dogs. I mean, that's the kind of thing
Or worse yet, a good high-quality steak that would steal corn that should have been used for ethanol and would have been manufactured by a methane-emitting bovine.
What Michelle Obama has done in the school lunch scene, these guys think it's their mission, and they're right to do this across grocery stores, in the workplace, and every other place. They're going to take Michelle Obama's mantra of, we have to make you healthy, to heart, and that's what they're going to do. And the problem is with all these progressives, I mean, at what part are we not free anymore?
Oh, we're well past that. So first of all, if they're walking around supermarkets telling people what to do, I'm expecting to find quite a few of them laid out flat on the floor from a smack in the jaw.
No, what they'll do is they'll go after the manufacturers and the producers so that we will be left only with their choices. I mean, our American grocery stores are the wonder of the world with all the choices we get to make. And sorry, folks, but freedom means you get to choose bad things too.
Right.
It's the capitalist system.
If you look around the world at the peoples of the world, some of them are very much shorter than we are. And why is that? And I'm 6 feet tall, and I'm a little above average for an Englishman of my age. But as I look around America, there are lots of people that are bigger and taller than me. And I'm not talking about fatter. Yeah, America has its share of fat people, but that's not the point. The point is that well-nourished people tend to not only live longer, but be sort of taller and have better physique. America and Americans have generally been amongst the largest people in the world, height-wise, because they have been better nourished for more years than any other people in the world. And you compare that to, say, the Indians, not so much now, but going back into the last century, they're frequently much, much shorter than we are. And you look at people in other countries that have had a history, of malnutrition, or they've only just begun to industrialize and experience abundance, and you see the height of the people, and then see how much taller they are 50 or 100 years later.
Yeah, this goes on at Tree Hugger, a site I love to skewer all the time, and they actually bemoan the wide variety and the cheapness of the food. Now, to ordinary people, being able to obtain decent food at cheaper and cheaper prices is a good thing. and they say it's a bad thing because you don't think about what you're putting into your body. So it's like, who the heck are you to force that decision on me? If I like the taste, that's great. And if I get too big, well, I just lost 50 pounds. I took it upon myself to do that. But these nitwits think that the rest of us are nitwits and, oh, you're controlled by the food corporations. And it's the same thing with these Michelle Obama bots.
I confess I am controlled by my taste buds.
Yeah.
And there's not, well, that's the thing that they'll say. Well, the food corporations concoct their recipes to appeal to your taste buds. I'm thinking, this is a bad thing. Why? Why should I want to eat liver, cod liver or whatever, all the time because it tastes bad, just because it's supposedly good for me? No, I'm sorry. That's punishment. But that's what these people want to do, and it's a confluence of, well, now that we're paying everybody's health care, and it's such a high cost, and it's only getting higher, we have the right to use other government monies to tell you how to lower the cost for the rest of us. But they will never entertain the thought of, well, why don't you just take care of yourself?
No.
Because you're too stupid, but you're also too expensive at the same time.
They just want us to all be miserable.
It's that pincer movement that they've now done to our freedom to say, because now we got you all to pay for everybody else's, well, now we have to control
Well, that's
it.
always been something we talked about when Obamacare was coming down the pipe. If they had control of energy and they had control of healthcare, they had control of everything.
Yeah.
Because they control the energy and they control the healthcare. And there is no single thing that you can find outside of those two things that the government won't find an interest in regulating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, once again, liberals like us to carpool, right? Ride trains and generally share to save money.
Yeah.
They do.
But they don't like to do it themselves. Two members of the White House inmates traveled to the West Coast to record two different programs on the same day in two different planes.
Yes.
Michelle went to record Ellen, and Barry went to record on Jimmy Kimmel Live, both of which are pretty low blows, but that's what they went for. And they went in separate planes. Now, some are suggesting that's because they were fighting, and maybe being on the same plane, they'd have killed each other, and I say bring it on.
You know, those planes are pretty big.
I was going to say, you can stay away from each other on a 747. This is not difficult.
You don't even have to get on and off at the same time.
No. Air Force One already has front and back doors. They don't bring the press in through Barry's office, for God's sake, do they?
No. But then again, the egos are such that they both want to use the front door.
Oh, they're just hypocrites like every other Democrat progressive.
Yeah.
For thee, not me, that whole deal. It's just, and people don't hear enough about that stuff. I mean, if people knew, and it was broadly advertised, which it would if they were Republicans, if a Republican president and a Republican first lady flew on the same day to nearly the same place in two different planes, the environmental movement would have 24/7, 365 access to CNN and MSNBC, and that's all we'd be hearing about.
Wouldn't it be nice if more of the presidential candidates said the sort of stuff that Perry does about wanting government to be inconsequential and wanting the states to have their rights back? I don't see it happening. Frankly, I don't see it happening even if Perry gets elected, because the government bureaucracy has more inertia than even he can imagine.
Well, yeah, the best thing I think we can hope for from a Republican president is to de-czar the executive branch.
Yep.
And to make a stab at driving that budget back down. I don't know.
He or she, because it could be a she this time, needs to issue the Dan Pfeiffer executive order, which goes back to Dan Pfeiffer had a little bit where they deliberately issued lots of executive orders in the early part of Obama's administration to erase everything that George Bush had done. Mm-hmm. I wish that our president would issue one executive order the first day, right after taking the oath of office, saying, I hereby remove all executive orders for the last 8 years, period.
He could go back a few, too. I mean, there's a couple from the...
I'd be happy if we started with
if
the
there's
first
any that
8.
are left, yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy with the first 8.
So, which is an interesting precedent. I mean, maybe it's not. Maybe it's been done before, but for Obama to come in and say, okay, my executive order erases all your executive orders, and then the next guy comes in and says, well,
Well,
My
with-
executive order says all your executive orders.
With the irrelevancy of Congress, are we heading into a late republic historical framework where we're merely electing the next 4-year despot?
Yeah, well, that's kind of where we are. Let's take
I
60 seconds.
think-
Well,
I
let's
think
take
we
60
are.
seconds and we'll be right back.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Have to make Skip happy. It's his stuff.
Yay!
GrokTALK, Steve McDonald, Skip Murphy, Mike Rogers, chatting about this and that. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Listen to this program on any of those places I said that I lost my note because I can't remember what they all are.
You too.
Because there's so
Flip
darn
TV,
many of them.
Stitcher,
Facebook,
iTunes,
iTunes, TuneIn,
Twitter.
iHeart.
everything.
Search.
You social media
Search
mania,
GrokTALK. Just search GrokTALK. Search Grant at grok.com. You will find us. So, hopefully Ted Cruz. I wouldn't want the day to be a total wash.
It's been pretty good, actually.
Tried to fill up those spots with
We
last-minute
have
connections that I don't have. I mean, some of my guests, like Dr. Singer, I acquired through a PR firm, a communications firm that I've been working with for over a year. Mr. Mackler was through somebody I just connected with this week. So I can understand why we might have stumbled or tripped a little bit and maybe not made the connection right, or maybe he didn't hear what he needed to from them, and things weren't, quite the way they should have been. So that's fine. We'll keep working with them because I want to have access to those kinds of guests, and that's how you do it. So, but Ted Cruz, we got directly through the campaign, and really that's just a matter of logistics and flight schedules and when he lands and so on and so forth. We may not get him at 11:30. We might get him at 10 minutes to 12, in which case we'll get one question in, and we'll do that. But we are going to see him tomorrow. Some of us, whoever shows up at the event, assuming everything works, when we get there and get it all set up at the remote, and we'll just do that.
Well, one thing I've always tried to do is have backups for the backups.
Yeah.
And we see this now as the place is littered with not one but 3 soundboards.
There's another one downstairs.
There's one in my trunk. It's smaller than the one you were looking at, but it does the job.
Yeah.
So we will do whatever we can to try to bring you
We try.
Okay.
news.
And found in the Clintons' neighborhood a advertisement in somebody's garden for sale. Used email server. Clean hard drive.
Yes, yeah, and he's taking all kinds of grief for that. But I think it's hysterical. This is free speech at its best.
Right, and by the way, did you hear about the ethical hackers, the white hats who had actually done some work to trace and track down the email server?
Yeah,
I did read some of that.
Yeah, it's much, much worse than you can imagine. So first of all, it may have been behind the wall in the maids' quarters at some point in Chappaqua, but it was last traced to Bill's office in Lower Manhattan in the Bronx.
Yeah.
So this is like Carmen Sandiego. Where in the world is Hillary Clinton's server?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing that came out was that she's been.
She, like that organization, is VILE.
And the hacktivists are looking for it.
Oh yeah, and she said, well, that's okay. If it's not on my server, everybody that I sent email to, all of their .gov email has been backed up. Well, Jen Psaki, the fluffernutter for the State Department spokesperson, basically just admitted, we just started to store all that stuff in February. So here's the State Department, who is also on the hook for doing, 7 times as long or 30 times as long as some of the other agencies in the federal government for returning Freedom of Information Acts. This is...
Of course they've got
I want
it
to.
stored.
I want to be sarcastic and say, "Oh, we're in the best of hands," but it just brings a shudder to me instead of delight.
You
in
know,
sarcasm.
if it was information about conservative activists, they'd be keeping it for a century. But if it's anything that might possibly expose their wrongdoing, they'll figure out how to lose it as quickly as
Well,
possible.
it's all out there someplace.
Yes, it is.
Because once it goes online, it never goes away. So somewhere, someplace, in some obscure location, like somebody's going to walk up into Grandma's digital attic some year, and they're going to discover a electronic book that inside has a folded up copy of some ancient document, which in this case will be Hillary Clinton email. That,
Yeah.
That's just how it works.
Oh, didn't they find her law records that way too?
Yeah, probably.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and a book, and Dummy's Guide to Cattle Futures, I think it was called.
Yeah. So somewhere they found that the server had in fact been last found online in Lower Manhattan or the Bronx because of the addresses they traced, which they figure was probably Bill's office. So it got moved out of the house.
You staring at your phone?
I'm staring at Ed Lasky,
Oh, just in case.
just in case.
Just in case Mark calls us at 11:30.
No, not Mark. It's now almost 11:30.
It's almost time for
Ted
Weren't you supposed to get a text?
Cruise control.
I was.
Yeah, aren't you supposed to be looking at your text to see if you're going to get a call?
So, not only do they trace it to Lower Manhattan, they did some other work too. They
text.
They looked at the HTML on the web front page to figure out what versions of web email it was running. They found out it was using an old, vulnerable version of Outlook. They found that the underlying web server, Microsoft's IIS, was a version that was about 4 years old and riddled with vulnerabilities, and so on, and so on, and so on. And they then built a simulation of what they had scoped out in the lab and just proved that they could basically hack it to pieces. Oh, and they found that the security certificate on the server was not, in fact, either an expensively purchased one or even a privately generated one which nobody else would have the other half of, but was in fact the default certificate that came with the software.
Oh gosh.
So,
Well, I've been saying all along, if we really want to find these emails, we should just go to China, North Korea, Russia, Iran, any of our enemies, and probably half the countries in Europe. They've probably got them all.
Well, after all, in this nuclear deal that Obama says is just so important with the Iranian mullahs that we can't tell you, Congress, or the American people, sort of like the FCC, we're going to change the whole internet, but we're not telling you what's going on. The Iranians have told us what's in that agreement, even though Kerry said, well, I've been to the Saudis, I've been to this place, but I'm not going to tell you, Congress. So the Iranians told us what's in it, and now it's not legally binding, and now they want to go through the UN to get it blessed. I mean, I couldn't even begin to think of some of this stupidity of what this administration wants to do with this stuff.
Yeah, they want the UN to basically say this agreement's good enough that it's sanction-proof. We're not going to impose any more sanctions on Iran. Therefore, you, America, are on your own if your stupid Congress wants to try and impose any.
And what do you finally have to say when we have a president that is absolutely doing his own thing and says the American people are not important, that their elected representatives in Congress are not important? At what point will the Republicans say enough is enough and finally reclaim their own power? They've got two tools, power of the purse and impeachment. So far, they've let both of them go. At what point do we say then the Republicans are no different than the Democrats for letting this Democrat president do what he wants, because you must agree with him, or you are such sad sacks, you're useless like the Whig Party was.
I think they need to have classes. They need to have classes on what a co-equal branch of government means, and what the relationship and the power mean. And people need. The problem is people just don't get it. They think probably the president can do whatever they want, and the only people who will object are people in the media, and that's how they learn about things they don't like.
Every 4 years they get the presidential campaign, and the presidential candidates promise that they will do this, this, and this, and and mostly the voters believe that this is what can happen. And so when one of the presidents actually stands up and says, you know what, I'm going to go and do this, this, and this, and I don't care about the rest of government, they say, rah, rah, somebody's actually doing what he told us. No, it's supposed to be hard.
Well, the problem is that how many people of the younger generation actually know enough about civics and how our system works to be able to know what's right and what's wrong?
Well, the ones who are graduating from schools of government don't.
Well, you look at the journalist who basically said, well, the president can ratify a treaty.
No. The
No.
president.
I think it was from Vox, too, Vox.com.
Vox has been known to be spectacularly wrong on just about everything. Vox-splaining is a new joke term on the internet.
Like fisking.
Yeah, but aside from that, I mean, they've dumbed down the education, and these folks can get away with just about anything. We need somebody to stand up, plant a flag in the ground, or basically mount his horse and carry a flag and say, "Follow me, boys. We're going to reform the government." And that needs to be somebody of real character who actually means what he or she says. Which is why my vision, because it terrifies both parties, is Sarah Palin doing just exactly that and sweeping the whores and moneylenders from the halls of Congress.
Yeah, it's almost like Hercules, though, going out and cleaning out the Sisyphean stables, the Aegean stables.
The Aegean stables, yes, that never end. It's full of crap that keeps coming back.
Yeah. Well, and part of our deal here at Granite Rock and GrokTALK is that we certainly know that the Democrats and certainly the progressives want to do exactly that, make those Aegean stables of government longer and longer and longer. But too often we see the Republicans going right along. Oh, their only excuse is, well, we can manage it better. Well, no, you can't, because at some point it's just too big, it's too intrusive, and you don't know what's going on, because they're not going to tell you. The bureaucratic staff have now assumed, because of that law way back in 1946 that gave the force of legality a law, any administrative rule that they create, I think more and more, it's not just repeal of the 17th, which made senators popularly elected. I think that's the rule. It's sort of like, if you want to get rid of the unions, make them collect their own dues. You pull that string, and everything unravels from there. I am convinced that that 1946 law that gave bureaucracies the ability to issue regulations with the force of law, if you were to deprive them of that, they'd roll up the same way.
Yeah, you got to take their food and oxygen away.
Well, not only that,
we only got 10 seconds, so
it puts the legislative branch back into having to do their job in its entirety instead of sloughing it off.
Yeah, well, okay, we're going into our next segment. And hopefully we will have Senator Ted Cruz on the phone. Although the way things have been going, I'm going to guess we're not going to catch him, but we're going to try. And that's all we can do, right? This is GrokTALK. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Come in Atlanta.
New Hampshire is famous for scenic drives, but they're tough to enjoy when you're on your way to the doctor. Because Obamacare limits your choices, some will have to drive more than an hour to see a doctor. What's health insurance worth if care isn't there when you need it? Jean Shaheen voted for Obamacare, putting your doctors and hospitals further out of reach. Tell Senator Shaheen Obamacare is not working for New Hampshire.
Jean Shaheen and her allies are making false claims about her record on veterans. The truth? Shaheen refused to meet with veterans pushing for reform. She wasn't on the committee that wrote the reform legislation and refused to co-sponsor important VA reforms in the VA Management Accountability Act until after the VA scandal broke. When our veterans needed her, Jean Shaheen was AWOL. Tell Jean Shaheen to stop distorting the truth and fix the VA.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Grok TV.